A few years ago, a manager of mine told me something that I will never, ever forget. She pulled me aside and said, "You're not as engaged as you used to be." And I asked, "What do you mean by not being as engaged? I'm doing my job well. I've gotten great feedback in my performance reviews. What do you mean?" These words I will remember verbatim. I will never forget them. She said, "You come into work, you do your job, and you leave." No word of an exaggeration. Those words are etched in my mind forever. You come to work, you do your job, and you leave. And that day I realized I was being punished because I was not working weekends, working evenings, and giving my soul to this company. And so what did they try to do? They went ahead and spent several years trying to crush my soul. But guess what? I'm still here and I look cute. So welcome everyone to the baddest bitch in the building. This is a podcast where we talk about basically how to take advantage of the systems and institutions that are meant to control us, mainly the patriarchy, and capitalism, which is the topic of today's episode. So my name is Neeki. I am your host and the baddest bitch in the building, not to be confused with you, of course, who is also the baddest bitch in the building. Today, I am doing something a little bit different. You might notice my setup is different. My mic is bedazzled. That's because I decided to bedazzle it and then I ran out of rhinestones in the middle. So excuse my half naked mic. I mean, I had a backup mic I could have used, but I'm like, it looks cute enough. So I'm going to use it. But anyway, today we are doing a new series. I've heard the baddies saying that they want more episodes. They want weekly episodes. And I want to give that to you. I do. So the girly laws of power actually some of them take me weeks, some of them take me months to prepare. And that's just because of the nature of that content. Like, I do a lot of research, I read a lot of books, watch lectures, so that I can give you the highest possible quality of content. So that takes a lot of time. There is this speech Nicki Minaj was giving at some award show when she said, "If Nicki spits it, Nicki wrote it," or something like that. And so I'm like, listen, if Neeki recorded it, Neeki spent weeks researching it. I can't believe I just talked about myself in the third person, but you know what I mean? It just takes me a really long time to put those together, and I can't compromise on the quality of the girly laws. So those have to be bi-weekly for now. I work full time. I compete in a sport. I have piano lessons. And so I don't want to overcommit to anything, but I put out a call to all the pretty girls and I said, "What do you want to hear from me in a new series?" And I heard lots of things about dating and life, confidence, all that sort of stuff. And I got an idea. So this is how the series is going to work. 24 hours before I record, I'm going to put a poll on my Instagram story with 3 prompts or topics. And the one that gets the most votes is going to be the topic of the episode. And those prompts are based on things that you all have shared with me on what you want to hear. So the 3 prompts that I had up were, is building a career a capitalist scam, which got 42% of the vote. The second one was navigating being around miserable people, which got 26%. And the third one was working in a toxic environment, which got 32%. So the winner and the topic of today's episode is building a career a capitalist scam? And this episode is unique because it's completely unscripted. I don't have notes. I don't have an outline. I don't have a script. I have nothing. It's literally just me talking from the heart or from another part, in case you don't agree with what I'm saying. I've had a really, really tough time in the corporate world the last couple of years. And I don't know about you, but it's crushing my soul. Then my soul gets mended when I work on this podcast and I put together episodes and hear from you all about how much the content helps you or how much you like listening to it and all of that. And That's better than any performance review at work could ever be. Sometimes I almost cry when I read you guys' comments. And if just one person listens to my stuff and gets something out of it, then I feel better about that than any amount of shareholder value I can ever generate. Because if the pretty girls and the baddies are my shareholders, then I want to deliver shareholder value. I've been put on this earth to deliver shareholder value for you, if you all are the shareholders. So, is building a career a capitalist scam? I think to understand this, we have to first look back at the history of capitalism and of work in general. So, something a lot of you baddies might not know about me is that I have a master's degree in political science. I actually focused a lot of my research on capitalism and democracy. I actually wrote a paper on why the form of capitalism we have today is so different from what it was intended to be. And I actually got invited to present that paper at a conference. I think it was in New York or Halifax, which is in Canada. I can't remember because I was doing two papers for two conferences at the time. It never ended up happening because the pandemic happened. But you know what? I'm taking this as my second chance to talk about this. So here we are. So you may have heard of this guy named Adam Smith. And if we're going to play Smash or Pass, I would say he's a pass because he's not that hot. But he is one of the inventors, so to speak, of capitalism. He was an economic and political thinker in the 18th century. And he wrote this big fat book called The Wealth of Nations, which I have right here. It's like 1,000 pages long. And I have like put sticky notes in it. I've annotated inside of it. I've taken notes. When did I buy this? July 2018. I write the date of when I bought the book in like the inside the cover of all my books because I like to know when I bought them. And in case you're thinking that I cheated, I chat with preparing for this episode. I didn't. I checked on the poll on my story this morning just to see which one was in the lead so I can like mentally prepare myself. And it was the capitalism prompt by a pretty big margin. So I'm like, it's probably going to win. So I busted out this book just so I can hold it and show you. Anyway, back to Adam Smith. His definition of capitalism was having private control. And by private, I mean citizens and people were able to have that control rather than the state. Having private control over the means of production, buying and selling goods and services, and exchanging things in the market. So that's what it was. And he envisioned it on a small scale. So this entire blueprint for capitalism was based on small businesses because at the time, this was before the agricultural and industrial revolution. At that time in the 18th century, everything was small scale. It was local. Businesses were local. If you did scale up your business and had employees, it would be a couple of people. The idea of a multinational corporation didn't exist because there was no globalization at the time. So that's what you have to understand about capitalism is that it was never meant to be a large scale global system. It was very much local, community based for small businesses. And then came the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, where manufacturing at a large scale started to become a thing. And that's when everything went to shite. And then in the 1920s, another guy by the name of Henry Ford, if we're playing Smash or Pass, also a pass because this guy actually pisses me off, as we'll see. He invented the 40-hour work week. And the concept behind the 40-hour work week was you have 8 hours a day to work, 8 hours for recreation, and 8 hours to sleep, which was perfect because you would sleep 8 hours and then you would teleport from home to work because there's no commute. And then you would work 8 hours because you didn't work any overtime. And then you would teleport from work to home and then just have fun because there were no chores or cooking or cleaning or anything to do. And then you would go back to sleep for 8 hours and then do the whole thing again. Yeah, so that's why he's a pass. Maybe if he'd made a 30-hour work week, he would be a smash. But honestly, at the time, the 40-hour work week was an upgrade because factory workers were working way more than 40 hours. They were working like 12, 15, 18-hour days. And Henry Ford was like, well, if you don't rest, you're not going to be productive enough to make cars and build things. So yeah, talk about a selfless person, you guys. Anyways, that brings us here today. I know I skipped over almost like 80 years and went from like the 1940s to the 2020s, but let's talk about today. Okay, so let's do a little thought exercise. In a democratic country, you have the people in power, and then you have the citizens who are ruled by the laws and the policies that those people in power put in place. And those people come in power by getting voted into office. And who votes them into office? The citizens. So there's a level of accountability. If they mess up or they're blatantly corrupt or they just do some screw up, they can get voted out of office. I mean, we all know that your taxes are probably going to their like vacation home and whatever. So obviously all of them are corrupt, all of them are power hungry, but let's just assume for the purpose of this example, there's an accountability of the people in power to the people who aren't in power. Now let's look at the governing structure of a company. So the CEO usually gets appointed by the board of directors. And then there are the executives and the managers in the company who also get hired by either other executives in the company who might have a say, or HR, or what have you. And then there are the regular people in the company who don't have authority, but who have to report up to the managers and the execs. So a company is not democratic because there's no accountability from the CEO, from managers, from executives. If those people screw up or treat people poorly or do something that might not be acceptable, there's no actual accountability. So if we compare the governance structure of a company to a government, a company is actually governed as a dictatorship. As an employee, you have no say over anything that happens in that company most of the time. Your boss can treat you poorly, your boss can expect you to work overtime, your boss can do lots of things that you can't complain about. You can't. If you do, you risk losing your job. And okay, you might be saying, okay, well, then go get another job. If somebody is unhappy because they live in a dictatorship, you can tell them, okay, well, you can emigrate to another country. Sure, that is an option, but that's not a very viable option. If you speak up against mistreatment, abuse, if you speak up about anything that you think is unjust and unfair to you, you risk losing your livelihood. You risk losing the roof over your head. And I've worked with a lot of CEOs, a lot of executives, boards of directors. I've had the chance to be in a lot of boardrooms with people of high levels of power and influence in companies and in huge companies too, not just like small businesses, but multi-billion-dollar companies. So I've seen some stuff. Let me tell you, there is nothing that a company will ever do that will go against its own interests. And it's crazy because a lot of the things that your employer might try to control about you, if the government were to do that, people would literally go out in the street and riot. For example, you can get fired for something that you post online. Imagine if the government was like, okay, well, you're going to get kicked out of the country for posting this on Instagram. But we're told from so many different directions, from school, friends, family, teachers, parents, that you need to have a career. You need to spend 40 years of your life working up a corporate ladder or a whatever organizational ladder, might not be corporate, so that you can what is the end goal of that? At the end, we all retire. So what is your end goal? What is the goal of a career? You just progress up into a role where you're making enough money and then you can be comfortable. And something that actually made me question all of this was I saw this TikTok a couple of years ago. You know those TikToks where there's like an interviewer, like some random guy who's just stopping people on the street and asking them a question. He'll be like, oh, how much do you make and what's your job, or something like that. So I saw a TikTok of a guy who was stopping people on the street and just asking them, what's your dream career? And he stopped this young woman and he said, what's your dream career? And she said, I don't want to have a career. And at the time I was like, this is weird. Like, why would somebody not want to have a career? What are you going to do? And it took me like a couple of years of working in a corporate job, of getting my soul absolutely crushed to understand that this girl was onto something. And it's just so crazy to me because a lot of the things that we can't do in life are because of our job. For example, let's just say you work 40 hours. By the time you get home, what can you do during the week realistically if you need to still maintain your household, cook, clean, get at least 8 hours of sleep, because we know that women need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, not 6 to 8. That's for men. How are we supposed to do all of these things? And then on the weekend, we have to catch up on all the chores and all the things that we weren't able to do during the week. We might have a few social events. We try to catch up on our sleep. And then by that time, it's Monday again and we have to do it all over. Like, when do you have the chance to do anything? It just drives me crazy. And I say this all the time, but my mom did not carry me for 9 months and then go through a painful labor and then spend 27 years raising me so that I can deliver shareholder value. If I died tomorrow, I would actually be upset. I mean, I would be dead, but I would be upset because my mom did not go through all of that so that I can help make money for more people. But a tip I will give you is that we live in a world where everything revolves around delivering value for shareholders. So guess what I became? I became a shareholder. If there's a company that is price gouging us for necessities, or there's a company that is in cahoots with the government so that they can basically deregulate any sort of price controls, I have a share in that company. So joke's on you. So I'm getting my coin and I get dividends. So a few months ago, my friend posted an Instagram story that had this quote that I think about almost every single day. I couldn't find it in my screenshots, but I'm going to try to paraphrase and not sound like an idiot. And it basically said, you know how a lot of kids from wealthy families who don't have to work go and pursue maybe art or music or things like that? That shows how, as humans, we want to create things. Our way of getting fulfillment is not by working and having a career where you have to work and deliver shareholder value. It's to create something. And I saw that quote around the time when my podcast was picking up. And I'm like, this makes so much sense. 'Cause I work a corporate job, but I don't get any fulfillment from that. That drains me. That crushes my soul. What I get fulfillment from is sitting down and putting together an episode and then seeing it come to life when I record it and edit it, and then hearing from you guys and getting comments that your perspective changed or that so-and-so thing that I said helped you or gave you a lot of insight and stuff like that. And I'm like, that is the human condition. We want to create things and be creative and be artists. And that's why I feel like people who are able to create something for a living and have a craft that they're closely connected to, that to me seems like the highest form of fulfillment from your work. And I think that's what Adam Smith, throwback to him, right? Smash or pass. That's what he envisioned capitalism to be. It was a sense of control over what you are producing as a small business owner. So you were close to the item or the service that you were putting out into the world. Whereas when we work a corporate job, you're in this bureaucratic system where you're, working on something and then it goes through a manager and then somebody else and somebody else. And then that end user is somebody you might be completely disconnected from, or it might be another corporation. And so at the end of the day, you don't care what you created. It's not something that you poured your creativity and your passion and your soul into, and you're seeing it come to life and helping people or bringing some kind of difference into someone's life. It's literally just checking a box a lot of the time, or figuring out a way to make more money for more people who don't need more money. And I think we live in an economic system now that values growth over everything else. It's just growth for the sake of growth, growing a company, growing the employees, growing the profit, just everything, growing, growth for the sake of growth. You realize there's a name for things that grow for their own sake. It's called cancer. So what we see today as capitalism is actually cancer fueled by greed. I have a lot of stories of this, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well, of actual animosity in the workplace, of coworkers or managers who will go behind your back. I'm holding a piece of chocolate in case you're watching the video. Who'll go behind your back, who will talk badly about you, who will complain, who will do all sorts of things and go out of their way to make your life miserable or to compete with you and undercut you. And I think there's something about working in the corporate world that just brings the worst out of people and brings people's insecurities out, their jealousy, their sense of competitiveness. And I'm saying this because I've seen and experienced this firsthand, not because I'm the one who's bringing that bad behavior, but I've been the receiver of that bad behavior. I don't want to use the word victim because I do not have a victim mentality, but oh my God. But as soon as you enter those office doors, you change your personality, you put on your corporate voice, your corporate personality, you start using weird made up words like circle back, ladder up, quick wins, low hanging fruit, net new, material. It's like you're going into a new culture where you have to adopt a new language, adopt a new personality. You're not yourself. Like when I'm at the office or I'm on a call, I'm not this person you are hearing right now. So how are we supposed to spend 40 years of our lives in a dictatorship where we have to act for a role that we didn't even audition for? And from the moment that they're trying to hire you, employers are lying to you. They're lying about the culture. They're lying about how much they care about employee development and professional development and engagement in the company. They care about your career growth as long as it's what serves them. They care about your professional development as long as it's what serves them. Is it going to make them money? Is it going to help the shareholders? Is it going to make your managers look good? It's never for your sake. So make sure that you always, and I say this in every freaking episode, no one has your self-interest at heart except for you. So if you don't promote your own self-interest, nobody else will. All right, you guys, this was an interesting monologue, I guess, because I'm just talking to y'all. You can respond though and make this a dialogue. You can drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify if that's where you're listening. You can get in touch with me on Instagram, on TikTok. Best place to reach me is on Instagram though. And just let me know, like, what do you think? How are you navigating through this? My closing thoughts for today are that if you're able to do something on the side where you're creating something, I feel like that would give a really big sense of fulfillment. At least that did for me. If I were to just work a corporate job, and obviously I have hobbies, like I compete in powerlifting, I play piano, like I told you, but I'm not creating anything there. But this is my baby. This is my creation. I gave birth to this podcast. So to me, that is fulfillment, and that is where I can actually see my craft and something that I've built and grown from the time where it was an idea in my head to the point where it's an episode that you're watching or listening to. And that to me is just like, it's freaking crazy. This episode was completely unscripted. I have no notes. I have no script, no outline, nothing. This was just me sitting in front of my bed talking to you all. So let me know what your thoughts are and if this is the type of content you'd like to see more of. And stay tuned for the next poll on my Instagram story. It'll be in a week or two. If you want to have a say in what kind of content you're going to listen to in the next few weeks, then stay tuned for that, because we are not a dictatorship. So thank you all for tuning into this episode. I'm so excited to kick off this new series with you. I hope that you like it. And as always, if you did, you can drop a like, a comment, or you can give a 5-star rating if you think I'm a 5-star bitch. Sorry, that's a Nicki Minaj line. I started the episode with a Nicki Minaj quote and I'm ending it with a Nicki Minaj quote. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm so grateful for all of you, and make sure that you don't forget that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. All right, until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye.